In the early 90s, Nintendo was dominating Sega with the Super Nintendo and the handheld market with the Game Boy. But with the year away from the launch of the Nintendo 64, Nintendo dove into the world of virtual reality with the Virtual Boy. So today we're going to take a look at the Virtual Boy and why it failed in this episode of Anton Retro. First, we'll need to set up the Virtual Boy. First, we'll need the Virtual Boy unit, the controller, the stand, and the game. Next, we'll need to attach the Virtual Boy to the stand, and put batteries into the controller. Next, we'll need to connect it and put in the game, and we're all set up. Now we can take a look at the hardware itself. On the top of the Virtual Boy, we have a focus slider and the pupil distant knob. On the bottom of the unit, we have the controller port, which at the same time is the power port, and the external port, which was meant for the link cable, which actually never came out, although fake versions do exist. And on the stand, we have a knob to adjust the angle of the Virtual Boy. Now let's move on to the controller, which is, as I mentioned previously, the power supply for the unit. It takes 6 AA batteries, and at the time Nintendo had a partnership with Duracell, but you could also buy a power supply. The controller, on the other hand, is actually quite unique. It has 2 D-pads, an A and B and select and start button, and they do feel really good. And there are also right and left trigger buttons on the back. Because the Virtual Boy didn't last very long, it only had 14 games released in America and 22 worldwide. But let's take a look at a box game called Tetris, which is from Japan. As you can see, the game is actually packaged the exact same way the Game Boy cartridges are, though it does have a protector on the bottom to keep the pins nice and clean. The manual, on the other hand, isn't that important just because it's in Japanese, and I don't really know Japanese, so it's not that interesting. So anyway, let's take a look at some Virtual Boy games. First, let's start off with Mario's Tennis. So as you can see, the Virtual Boy doesn't have the best display. So let's change it to a black and white display, which will look a lot better. Anyway, Mario's Tennis is the first Mario Tennis game in the series. It's actually not that bad, but it still does lack in a couple of places. It's just fine in my opinion, and since it came with the Virtual Boy, it's just a fine game to package along with it. Next up, let's take a look at Red Alarm. Red Alarm is a quite unique game on the Virtual Boy. This game uses a wireframe instead of polygons, just because the Virtual Boy can't support it. This game might look very similar to Star Fox, but to be honest with you, it's actually quite different of a game. Next, let's take a look at Tetris, which is actually a Japanese exclusive game. This game is just a straight up port of Tetris in the Game Boy. Honestly, looks pretty much the same and plays exactly the same as you would expect from a Tetris game. And finally, let's take a look at the best Virtual Boy game, Wii Land. As being the second installment in the Wii Land franchise, this game actually takes most of its inspiration from the first game. What sets this game apart from that one is that you can go into the background, and this actually is really cool if you actually play it on a physical Virtual Boy because you can actually see that depth. It actually works really well, and I would like to see this game get released on another platform such as maybe the 3DS. So why did the Virtual Boy fail? Well, that's an easy question. Just look at the manual. And that says it all. As you can see, this system has a lot of warnings. Basically, each page has at least one warning. Because of the display, a lot of people had headaches and nausea when they played the Virtual Boy, and it was a very uncomfortable system to play. Another problem was that the Game Boy was on store shelf the same time as the Virtual Boy, and because the Game Boy was a lot cheaper and had a better library of games, people often just wanted to buy that instead, which meant that the Virtual Boy didn't sell many units. It only sold 700,000. And because it flopped, it was discontinued in less than a year. And also the Nintendo 64 was on its way, so people just wanted to save their money for that. Anyway, that wraps up the video. If you did enjoy it, make sure to leave a thumbs up and comment. If you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe for future videos. But with that out of the way, see you next time.